Success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the difference you make in people's lives. Michelle Obama.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Mentality. It's your boy Gambo, and as always, I'm here with Simmons. Today, we're discussing whether or not men are intimidated by successful women. What does that look like, and if so, why are they? Stay tuned as we chop it up in another interesting episode. All right, welcome back to the show, guys. Drew, how you feeling today, bro?
Feeling amazing, bro. How you feeling, dog?
I can't complain. Sun's out, shining. Life is good, bro. So today, we're actually looking at the topic of, are men intimidated by successful women? I know that's a lot to unpack, and that question in itself is preloaded. So we can start by defining what is it that we mean by successful and go that route.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at this from, are men intimidated by women who make more money than them? We really get down to it. Success is so, so subjective. Like, what is success? Like, a successful janitor versus an unhappy doctor. Who's more successful?
Yeah, you got that. I was going to put this blatantly, but yeah, you're right. Or men or dudes typically intimidated when a chick in general makes more than they do.
So, yes and no. And it's not the way that you would think, in my opinion. So, a man is going to definitely, might date a more successful woman, definitely sleep with a more successful woman. We'll sleep with just about any woman. She's cute enough, let's be honest.
Financially successful, you mean, right?
Yeah, financially successful. But the intimidation comes into play because society has us believing that men have to be the providers in the relationships. And if you're not, even though you can have your own everything, and you can have your own career, your own money, but if your girl makes more than you do, no one's happy in that situation right there.
Okay.
I don't know. What say you?
So just to clarify, though, are you saying that you said is yes and no, but are you gonna lean more towards like men are intimidated by successful women or no?
So no, I'm actually gonna flip it on you. I think successful women are intimidated with dating.
Oh shit!
I think that yes, and I have a decent amount of reasoning behind it, but I wanna kind of get you where you're coming from first.
All right.
What do you think?
So to be honest with you, I also do feel like it is something that I think is subjective, but I will explain with that because I think I don't think that the answer is necessarily yes. I think it's more so no, but I think it depends on the way you look at it. And I know I'm sounding really dilly-dally with the shit, but I can explain more about what I mean by that. So I think men can be intimidated by a successful women, but not because of her success. If that makes any shred of sense.
So what are they intimidated by?
I think men, if anything, will be intimidated by everything else that comes with the success. So I guess on one front, one can argue that, it is a success that they're intimidated by, but I would say no. I think as men, we typically are not intimidated by your success as a woman if you are more successful than we are. I do agree that there are, societal norms that promote certain gender norms of, the man being the breadwinner versus, the woman being the stay-at-home mom or whatever. I think that's more out, but more so it's just like the man typically feels like they need to provide. And so when a man starts to feel insecure about that they're not the ones providing, that can flip a switch. But I think it's more important, more so the energy that the successful woman will portray. So I can give you an example. If a woman is super successful, right, and she has a man who is not as successful as her, but she still treats that man in a way that he will feel like a man, and he treats her in a way that will make her feel like a woman, I feel like that relationship could work. So in that sense, it's not necessarily the success that drives the rift around are men intimidated by successful women. I think it's the way you carry yourself, and it's the energy and the attitude that you exhibit within the relationship, and that goes for both the man and the woman. But since we're focusing on, the woman being successful, I think the way the woman's going to treat the man is going to be key as to whether that man is intimidated or not.
Okay. So, I think absolutely, yeah, for sure. If you have to be sure of yourself, you have to have that own self-confidence, the own sense of self to be able to handle some of the things that come going against societal norms. So both the man and woman have to have like get rid of that ego and be like, this is what that is, the situation is financially is cool,
Right.
but I still love this person. I respect this person for who they are and not what they can do for me essentially. I totally agree with that. But while that is what it should be, I don't think that that's the norm. I think that's kind of the exception to the rule.
Can you elaborate a little more on that?
So the majority of time, I think if a woman dates a dude that is not as successful as her, she might be okay with it for now, but also her social circle might not be. Say she's a
Right.
successful lawyer or a doctor, and she's dating someone who drives for FedEx, which is I'm not knocking. I'm never gonna knock any job that we talk about or
Right.
use for examples because they all make more money than I do. So just examples. Say she's dating someone who works for FedEx. She might be like, oh, he treats me very nice. He does what he can. He supports me. I like him. Her doctor friends might not fuck with it. Her girlfriends might not fuck with it. Her parents might not fuck with it. Hearing over and over again that dudes that want to be stay-at-home dads or bitch made and stuff like that, it's those little societal things that can begin to not so much influence, but it casts a negative light that you have to constantly have that mental gymnastics to kind of fight against.
I want to
Same
segue
thing
real
with
quick.
the
I
with
want
the
to like
dude as
just ask
well.
you a quick question if you don't mind. So
Please.
I think we can all agree that the rhetoric that women being stay at home moms is kind of like slowly going out the window, if not going out the window, right? So then, why do you think that there is still that rhetoric or that idea behind men having to be the breadwinners in relationships?
Why do I think that still exists?
Yeah, like because if we're doing away with one, wouldn't it make sense that both of them would start to be undone? If we're really striving towards being this equality driven society where we're not really looking at a bunch of gender norms. And if you do want to look at gender norms, I think that's perfectly fine. I'm someone who does look at certain traditional gender norms in certain situations because I think it works for me. But if you're not someone who subscribes to that or who succumbs to that, then look, why are we still adhering to just one side of it and not the other?
Oh, because that's how most society still views things and those gender norms. Like, yeah, sure, we're definitely pushing for women to get their own careers, get out the house, and have two incomes in the household. That's great. But if you can support a household on one income and the other spouse doesn't have to work, it takes a burden off because now you have someone to look after your kids instead of taking them to daycare. There's more time spent with their family and stuff like that. Things around the house can be done. That's a lot of things that go into that. And while we are going away from that because now we can look at more stay-at-home dads, which I think like that's my absolute dream job is to be a stay-at-home dad. That's
Really?
like the best shit in the world. Oh yeah, you spend all day with your kids. You cook. I love to cook. I get my nice long workouts in. Baby girl come home. Bills paid. You know what I'm saying? Get my feet up. But that's the thing. It's like she's doing her career, which makes her happy. I'm taking care of my kids and shit, or helping take care of my kids, making sure that they're happy, making sure my house is straight. You know what I'm saying? I don't see anything wrong with that. Society would disagree.
Right.
Because as the dude, I should be the one out there making the money, going to hunt that lion, bringing home that bacon, essentially. My
Right.
wife is the one who should be taking care of the kids because she's the one who's nurturing. Women are nurturing. Men are hunters and women are gatherers type society, which, again, we're trying to get away from that, but make no mistake, that's definitely still where we are. That's still thoroughly ingrained in our culture and society.
Okay. So you just feel like that's just something we're just still on, even though we try to cover it with a
Yeah,
facade of that we're not.
we still on that. It's not even like a facade, really. It's just we're at the beginning of a transition period.
That's a good point. All right. All right. Touche. So I guess you saying that you don't mind being a stay-at-home father. So I'm assuming, would say that you don't mind if a woman is more successful than you in a relationship. You don't. That does not intimidate you, or not even to use the word intimidate. That does not bother you, not in the slightest.
Nah, my wife was a brain surgeon by day and a tax attorney by night, and it made her happy. But at the same time, she was able to make that separation and come home and be a part of your family. That's awesome. Because I want my wife to be fulfilled and happy the same way I want to be fulfilled and happy. Because the shit that fulfills me doesn't pay as much as some things that might fulfill my future successful wife.
And I think I just want to say that I think you hit the hammer on the head you hit the nail on the head with the hammer. How the fuck that expression goes. I think you said something that's really poignant to the fact that when she's able to separate that relationship of her being at work versus her coming home, because I think what I have noticed, I think a lot of times when we talk about women unfortunately are jaded in society. So when they go to work, they feel like they need to put on a more masculine frame in order to be successful, right? So once you have that masculine frame on when you're at work, some people don't really know how to separate that when they come home. They still want to be on that masculine frame. Whereas like if you're dealing with a masculine figure at home, it's not going to fly right because now you're putting him into his feminine frame, he's pushing you into your masculine frame, and there's going to be a clash because you're not naturally supposed to do that. You're supposed to be at a balance. And so that's what I meant by when I first said in the beginning that I think is more so the attitude and the energy that comes with it. If, like, for example, your wife, I should say your ex-wife, if she was able to, like come home and be loving and show you all the love and tender care that you needed as a man and show you the respect that you needed, and you were able to, like, also be as a man, be there for her, show that you care for her, caress her and love her in a way that made her feel like a woman, I think there's a balance there.
We still be married.
Right. I think there's a balance there. But I think because it's difficult to do that, or sometimes people don't know how to, like, let that go. Like a lot of women, when they're successful, I feel like they still need to be in that masculine frame. I think that automatically arouses, like, the man's, like, disdain for it because you're like, it's like this. It's like no chick really wants an overly feminine dude. And at the same token, no man wants an overly masculine woman. So I think it's two sides of the coin when you look at it from that perspective. You feel me?
100%. And that's another thing. It's like, why does being successful at work automatically put you in a masculine frame unless that's not a naturally masculine thing to do? Which kind of goes back to are men intimidated by successful women? I think that women are intimidated by being more successful than men because they do carry that innately more masculine frame from having to be more masculine at work, from having to be independent. You've had so many single moms, like probably the highest amount of single moms in the past 20, 30 years. Women have had to learn to be entirely self-sufficient, to raise their own households, and they're taught very young that, hey, you can't expect Prince Charming to just come and sweep you off your feet. You got to be able to have your own everything.
Well, this is a modern thought process, though, right?
A very modern thought process,
right.
Yes, very modern. And as women continue up that ladder, their potential dating pool decreases because they want someone that can at least match or surpass their current level of success.
I absolutely agree. So do you think, in a sense, and this might be controversial, but do you think that women are shooting themselves in the foot by being more successful financially? Because they're and basically closing down or shrinking their dating pool.
It depends if they want to date. Like if you want to date a dude, then you have to either be willing to take that mental or do those mental gymnastics to be comfortable and genuinely comfortable with dating someone who's not as financially successful as you.
Right.
Or B, you have to date up, which it gets harder and harder to do because number one, your pool decreases, your age increases, and we know that as females age, it gets harder to find suitable partners after a certain age because men typically like to date younger. Women like to typically date older. Older men are more established in relationships by the time some women get to that level of success. So it becomes harder to date. It becomes harder to meet people. It becomes harder to go to social events and engage because you're climbing the social ladder. You're working so much. That's why it's so intimidating because it's not really like frightening or scary. Like I'll be the last one to call a successful woman scary. Like they're got more balls than I do half the time, be able to do half the things in their careers that they do. It's exactly that. It's intimidating.
And I agree with that. At the same token, I think where I like draw the distinction is the fact that and I'm even a little torn by that because I feel like it's difficult for like to be in that woman's position, right? Because if one, like, say your life purpose or like you believe that what you want to do in life is to be this ultra successful person, like we already established, you're probably shrinking down your dating pool if your mental state is that you're only gonna date someone who's as successful as you, or more successful than you are, which we know that most women feel that way financially. So I feel like unless you can kind of get rid of that, either that or you make a sacrifice as not being as successful as someone else. And it's unfortunate because it's almost like telling people, hey, don't be successful, and I would never condone that. Like, yo, get this paper.
Yeah, no, go get
this
the
paper,
bag,
son.
man. What you doing?
Yo, go what you doing? Get this bread. So I feel like it's tough. I think, and that's why I say it's a yes or no. It's a yes or no answer because it's dependent on who you are as a person and the way you are able to carry that. Let me give you an example. Did you see the television show on Netflix? It was about Madam C.J. Walker. It was about the hair perm shit. When you get a chance, check that shit out. Now I was talking about the lady who basically invented hair cream and shit, hair perm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you come to find out she didn't really invent that shit. Spoiler alert. But anyhow, so in the show, it shows her as someone who basically kind of started this business from the ground up. She was married to a dude, and the dude started to get a little insecure because he's building this huge empire, and people start whispering in his ear, kind of like what you said. Like, people in his social circle were not cool with it. People were whispering in his ear, like, yo, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? A man's supposed to have something on his own. Da da da. He gets insecure, and there's a rift because she becomes this huge millionaire. Like, she got all this bread, and he feels like, yo, like, where's my steak or whatever. So there's that rift. I mean, and granted, like, the way she's portrayed in the show, I think was like overly masculine. I think I don't know if that's the way she was in real life, and it is a dramatization, so I think it's probably like skewed. But it goes to just show you that I feel like there is some insecurity based on the way that you act, and it's not that you act mean or that you act like, hey, go pick up this. I think it's a power struggle whenever there's money involved, whenever there's finance involved in the things. It's not just about the relationship too. It's about like decision making. It's about, you know, if we go to the grocery store, like, who the fuck is picking out the shit to buy? Is she like, nigga, we eating chicken tonight? And you like, well, I want beef. Well, nigga, you can't afford beef. Motherfucker, you eating chicken tonight. It's that kind of shit. You know what I mean? And like, a lot of dudes will probably feel like that's disrespectful. Or they might feel like I'm not being respected as a man. And we know one thing that men care about is respect. And another thing that women cared about is like they want to feel like they're well taken care of. And dare I say protected in different ways. I don't mean toxically, but they want to feel like they can rely on a man who cares for them. And that's just honest. So I feel like once those things are satisfied, then yeah, you have a healthy relationship. But once either one of those components are like, you know, drifted apart, then it's going to be a problem. And I think that's where the distinction that I'm trying to make of like being a successful woman and finding a good mate, that's where that issue comes in.
So here's the thing with that is, if the roles were reversed for the Madam C.J. Walker thing, it wouldn't be a noteworthy story.
Absolutely not.
Because husband's making more money and becomes uber successful. She's like, oh, bet. We chilling.
Because she feels well taken care of.
And he's like, oh, bet. I get to provide for my wife.
Absolutely.
End of story. Roll credits.
Right.
And I think that goes back to this is brought on by the late great Patrice O'Neal, the king and queen system. The king and queen system. A king can find any old chick, any old dusty broad, pick her up, dust her off.
Absolutely.
Put some shoes on her feet. Now she is the queen. She's his queen. She's the queen of the kingdom. The second highest in all the land.
Some might argue the most highest, honestly. If you play chess,
that's the highest.
Yeah, it's literally, it's the facade of the king being the highest is, you know, there, but the queen control a lot of shots.
So you got a queen with no king. She meets a dude, and he could be, I don't know, a duke. I don't know, like the royalty hierarchy and stuff like that. He could be a knight. He could be like the best knight in all the land. You know, he's strong, got his own horses, his own stables, billions of dollars. She marries him. He's not the king. He's the queen's husband. That goes to show that, at least in our society, you have to have a man that is in a financially higher position than a woman for both parties to be satisfied.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I would say, and I know, like, I sound irreverent with this shit. I feel like yes, for a lot of people, yes. But that's not, I think if people can drop the way that, like, so for example, if the woman's more successful, like say you have a queen, right? And she's obviously like the queen, but you're like the queen's husband. It depends on the queen, the way the queen treats you. Is she making decisions with you there? Is she, like, you know, bringing you into things and making you feel like you're respected? Is she still loving and sweet to you? Like, I think those are the things that really matter. I don't think it's necessarily like the title of you being successful that matters. You know what I mean? That's what I think. I don't think it's necessarily like you making 200K versus your man's making 50K. I don't think that's necessarily like the rift. I think it's the decision making. I think it's the aspect in which you like treat the person. So it's more the energy that you portray. If you're making 200K and your man's making 50K, like how are you like dealing with your finances? Like are you still like incorporating him and stuff? Like is he and for one, like just to make that perfectly clear, I feel like no woman wants a guy who's like lazy and not ambitious. I think women value
I don't think
ambition a lot.
anyone wants anybody that's lazy or unambitious. Like
Absolutely.
no one likes that at all.
Absolutely. So I think when you have that element of like, maybe the guy is only making 50K, but you know he has potential. And you know he's ambitious. I think that is something that a woman can look at and say, I am interested. I will support you. Once that man has that support, he will be of higher or equal value to the woman in her eyes because she feels like he has the potential. He's not like a bum. He's like doing something that's like great. And for the man, I think it's important for him to see that the woman is actually supporting him. And it's also important for him to be able to support the woman and make her feel good. And support the woman and make her see that he is ambitious. And I think there's that struggle between the two because if the woman doesn't see you as being ambitious or as you having potential, she might give you a time frame like for real in her head. She might be like, I'm gonna get this nigga like 2 years. If you don't get this shit together, we done. And for the guys, like, yo, if you keep treating me like shit and you keep like talking to me like I'm your son, because you make more bread than me, then I'm not with the disrespectful bullshit. I'm gonna fuck one of your friends, or I'm gonna go cheat or whatever. I know. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like there's that rift there. It's the energy in which you both come at each other. I mean, so for example, and I think this is a profound. Like, so I was actually doing some research on this, and I was looking at the Census Bureau, and apparently there was a study in 2008 in June that was talking about how like 38% of wives who make more money than the husbands will report a lower income on a fucking census. Why the fuck do you think that is? It's because you're right. Like, there's societal norms that people feel like the man should be the breadwinner. Makes people uncomfortable. So they feel like, well, I make more money than my husband. They probably won't talk about it to their friends because they know it's going to be shit that comes with that. So they will report lower.
Damn.
Yeah.
Bro, honestly, you really kind of answered every question under the sun with just that one simple word, which is potential. And it's like, what do you give a woman that can do everything for herself? Like, you give her your potential to be great, to be better. That's 100%. Without the potential, then a man is intimidated by a successful woman.
Absolutely.
And a woman is intimidated by the idea of being alone with a bunch of ain't shit niggas. And it falls back on us dudes. Like, okay, numbers aside, you need to be grinding every single day to be the absolute best person you can be and to get as much out of life as you can, whether that be experiences, financially, culturally, whatever. You need to be grinding for your life's purpose as harder than you grind for anything else on this earth.
Right.
First and foremost. And then through that, you can find a woman that makes $1 million. And you might not be there yet. You might not ever get there. But you grinding every day. And that's gonna, number one, command that respect from your girl. And number two, command that respect from within yourself.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. And I think, like, I can speak for myself. I know personally, to be honest with you, if I was dating somebody who made a lot much more money than me, I'd be uncomfortable. You could call me traditional in that sense. That's just me personally. I know myself. And I feel like I just gotta make more than you. I'm sorry. Like, I know it sounds so like, very guyish, but that's just how I feel. I'm not saying I won't be with somebody because they made more money than me. I don't think I think that's ignorant. But I'm saying what will be the ideal situation for me personally is when I feel like I'm taking care of business. That's just me personally. But do I look down on someone who doesn't have to share the same viewpoint as me? Absolutely not. Because I think in a sense, you might be even more secure in yourself if you feel like you could be with somebody like that if they treated you like shit. Then maybe there's something in there that you see that's more valuable for you. But for me, I couldn't. I could only do it if I felt like, like someone was there who made more money than me and would drive me to reach my best potential, because I feel like sometimes steel sharpens steel. So if like you're ahead of me and I feel like, yo, I gotta get that bread too, then I feel like that will make me put my best foot forward. You know? And I just
I
want to
totally agree with that.
Yeah, and
But
I
it's a
just want to
slippery slope.
say, well, like even the study that I was looking at, it was interesting because I think it was talking about how like so traditional people like men in traditional like relationships. So meaning if like you were the man and you made more money than your woman, there was like less likely to be a discrepancy between what you reported in your census versus your actual W-2. We're gonna call those gaps. So if your census is whatever you report, your census report and whatever you reported yourself, versus what you actually make, which is your W-2, pay stub. Those gaps are less likely to be a lot less in men who are traditional. So they make more money than their wives. It's gonna be less likely for them to like report some bullshit. But for like modern men, which is funny, I thought was interesting. Men who are more modern in today's day and age were more likely to report a discrepancy between it. There was more likely to be a higher gap. But even more so interestingly was that women who were traditional, meaning they were marrying guys who were, had more money than them, are more likely to report a higher gap. So if you're a traditional woman and your man made more money than you, you're gonna try to make your income look a little higher. Versus women today who are more successful and date guys who are less successful are gonna have less chance of a gap, because they're gonna report more accurately their income, but they're gonna make their man's income a little higher. So it's not more so like it's more so just like skewing the idea of like your man makes more than you. And I just think it's interesting that we live in a society where we feel like everything's supposed to be more equal today, but we're actually reporting false numbers to make it seem like everything's like back in the traditional days.
It goes back to that thread of society. Like how far along are we really? Are we really changing for new viewpoints, or like is this a way that we genuinely feel as a society
Mm,
things should be?
mm. That's a good point. Here's what I'll say about that. I think, and I'm probably going to get some, people probably not going to feel comfortable with this, but I'm just here to tell the truth how I see it as my perspective, my experiences, my life. I think there is something innate about men that makes them feel that way. Maybe it is learned. Maybe it's not necessarily nature. Maybe it is nurture. But it's something that makes us feel like we need to be providers. And I feel like there's something innately in women that makes them feel like they want to be like cared for. And that can mean different things. But I think there's something innately in us that, if we're honest with ourselves, I think there's something innately in us that showcases that. That doesn't mean, you shouldn't strive to make more money than your husband. I don't think you should strive to make more money than your husband or vice versa. But that doesn't mean you need to strive to you shouldn't strive to make as much as you can with your potential, not like looking into someone else's pockets. You should be the best that you can be, and they should be the best that they could be, and they should be love and respect regardless of the outcome of that from both parties. And I think that's the difficult thing to do, because if you have one party who's like, "Yo, shorty, you making way much more than me, and you treat me like shit," it's gonna be a problem. But like, yo, shorty, you making so much more, you making a lot of bread. I'm on my way too, and like it's like that build type relationship. I think it could work. It could work. So I think my biggest thing from this whole conversation is the energy. It's really the energy and the way that you carry yourself that showcases whether it's possible or not. That shows whether men are gonna be intimidated or not.
That energy is so. I don't think y'all understand how, like, females don't ever try to son your dude
Word.
because you make more money, because that's the quickest way
Oh my god.
to drive that man as far away from you as humanly possible. That's
It's
oh man.
like it's like
Don't ever do
little
it to
things
yourself.
too. It's like, guys, men and women, I think could just be different. Like when a nigga is driving and you trying to give him directions, it's cool if you want to give him directions. It's just the way you gonna say it. If you
Yeah.
disrespecting me, you all up in his ear like, nigga left, I said left. Yo, I'm gonna feel some type of way. I know it sounds crazy, but like men like to go through and fail and see that they failed and redo it again. it's just naturally how niggas are. Now, women, if they feel like, you're starting to be more in your feminine frame and they're starting to go more in their masculine frame, and you're always just up under them, you always just sobbing over them and shit, they not going to, like, it's eventually going to be like a repel, they going to repel that shit because they're like, yo, I don't want this. You know what I mean? It's just naturally, I feel like there's those things that are naturally that way, but a lot of us don't want to admit it, and because we're trying to move towards, like, a more progressive society, sometimes I think we try to undo some of the natural things that we, like, are brought up with, and I feel like they work. We can still be respectful and push our women to make as much money as they can. Also push everybody to make as much as they can, but it's just the way that you carry yourself that I think matters. Keep repeating myself, but it's the truth.
Because that's real shit. Like, don't act like your shit don't stink. Plain and simple. You make as much money as you want. Don't belittle nobody because they don't make as much as you do. Word. Especially your partner that you're supposed to be building a life with. And that goes from both ends of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also, like, not just like, because sometimes you could offend somebody or disrespect somebody without even knowing that you did that. You feel what I'm saying? So, like, for example, like, a woman can make a lot much more money than a dude, and she's thinking, like, everything's good. Like, I'm not disrespecting you. I'm just telling you, nigga, by the time I come home, I need you to make sure this laundry's done, and I need you to make sure that, like, you fold the kids' clothes. But the way you might have said that, you didn't think twice about it, but the way he might have took that is like, oh shit, she's sonning me because she felt like because I'm staying at home, like, like she's giving me orders and everything to do. And that goes vice versa. Like, if for the fellas, if you got a wife who's staying at home, just because you got a job and you working don't mean you need to, like, disrespect them. Be like, yo, I need X, Y, and Z done. It's the way that you talk to people. It's the energy that you need to respect people. And for men, respect is it's at the top of that hierarchy. It's the apex for us. Like, that's what we care about the most. And for women, it's the security. It's like, caring for them, making them feel loved. And I think once both of those things are intact, and based on the way that you show and explain and talk to them, I think that's what matters.
I think that knowing your role and sticking to it, and knowing your role and sticking to it transcends how much money you make, for sure. It's because you set forth the stage. I'm gonna be the masculine one. You're gonna be the feminine one. Whether that's a dude saying the first and the female saying the latter, or vice versa, I think that both can work if y'all make the commitment to stick to those roles. Don't try and switch it up halfway through.
I will play devil's advocate and ask, do you think that's possible? Because
hell no.
I was gonna say, is it sustainable? Because I don't know if it's necessarily sustainable for the woman to assume that masculine role for the duration of that relationship, nor is it sustainable for the dude to assume that feminine.
Not for a dude to do it. Absolutely not.
Exactly.
Absolutely not.
I don't think it's sustainable, and I think it's healthy to have that balance. I think it's healthy for the man to be in a masculine, and I'm not saying that's necessarily making more money. I'm not saying that, but to feel like he has some kind of input, and I think it's healthy for the woman to feel like she is being taken care of to some degree. It doesn't necessarily have to be financial, but it's everything that comes with that. So I ask the question again: Are men intimidated by successful women? I'd say it's dependent on the way that the woman carries herself and the way she talks to the man and the way that the man receives that information and the way that he carries himself to that woman. Because if the man starts to feel like the woman is overly masculine, he's going to be repelled. He's going to be repulsed by it. Just like if the woman starts to feel like the man is overly feminine, she's going to be repelled and repulsed by it.
And once again, that's not to say that the man feels masculine or feminine because of what the female does. That's right. All about what's coming from the dude. So, dude, if you feel like you're the feminine one in the relationship, you need to check within yourself.
But I feel like you have a conversation because it's not just necessarily within yourself, though. I feel like, yes, it is within yourself as well. But I think it's also, like, if you're in a relationship, you have to understand you're feeding off of two different energies. So it's not just one energy. I think it's the way that the person is going to talk to you and the way that you're going to receive it. You're right. Some people might be, the dude might be really feminine because she might just ask him something and he might have felt overly weird by it. But that's when that conversation, that communication piece comes in. And I think it's important for you to understand that, like, I think my advice to successful women would just be make sure you are able to lower that masculine frame when you're at home with your loved ones, with your family. And for the dude, just make sure you are assuming that masculine role when your woman. Make sure your woman sees you as a masculine dude. Like, and I don't mean start going doing stupid shit where people think that's masculine, but make sure you're there for her. Make sure she's taken care of. Make sure you're showing that you love her. You know what I mean? In that regard, and make sure that you sees that you have potential and that you have ambition. And you're striving for something that's important to you. You have a code that you're sticking to, and that you grind towards day in day out. Whether that's you taking care of the kids. You gonna take care of motherfucker. You need to make sure you do that shit to the best of your ability, but not just that. Make sure you're also doing something else. She don't want to see your ass just on the fucking couch watching TV all day, and when she's out from a long day at work, and you like, hey, you want to watch this TV show? No, nigga, fuck out of here. Like, I don't watch that shit. You know what I mean?
The season just came out, baby. We wanna watch it. Got the popcorn.
Exactly. So I think it's a very delicate topic. I know myself, and I know for sure for me, I'd be uncomfortable if a woman made more than me, and if I was in a serious relationship. It's just me.
I think my answer is it might be a bit simplistic, might be a bit unrealistic, but gentlemen, don't ever let your woman take you out of your masculine frame. Don't ever give your woman the opportunity to assume the role of masculine. Don't let her take that role. Don't let her steer the ship.
So
if you're the captain, she's the first lieutenant.
Let me ask you a question that might get you in trouble. When you say don't let your woman assume the masculine, do you mean don't let your woman ever assume the breadwinner role in the family?
No, not at all. Again, my wife could be making $200,000 and I make $0, but I can still maintain that masculine role.
How?
I have something to give her that money can never buy. That she cannot hire somebody to give her.
Yeah, I agree. And I just think it's also interesting when you look at, like, it just shows the difference between men and women. When you look at, like, I think you mentioned earlier, like a woman, when she makes over a certain threshold of, like income, she's only going to date someone who makes just as much, minimum, or more. But if you look at a dude, it could be a dude who's a billionaire who's dating that chick from McDonald's. Just because, like, that's not necessarily what matters to us the most. We don't care if you make X amount of dollars. We care if you have ambition, you're not lazy, you're not a thought, all of that. We care about that. But also we care about the way you look. And let's be honest, men are more, physical and shallow in that sense. Men are more shallow in the sense that they care about how you look, right?
I'll be the first one to tell you that.
Right. And that's why you have all these, like, unfortunately, you have all these, like, pressures on women to look a certain way and be a certain way that originally come from men, but are perpetuated by other women. And then on the flip side, you have all these pressures that come from women, originally come from women, for men to be in a certain, financial or, certain success level that are perpetuated by other men. So I think it's both sides that, we struggle on different things, but I just think it's interesting that there are those differences. And if we come together in a healthy balance, that's how we get the best from each other. When you have a man who is supported by his wife and is pushing him to be the best he could be, and you also have a man who's supporting his woman and pushing her to be the best that she could be for what they both think is the best for them. It's a beautiful thing.
Bro, I think we might have to start wrapping this up.
I think you're right.
I think to put a bow on it, respect each other, establish your frame, stay in your frame.
Word. That's real. And I guess to wrap it up, I would say it's really not about your accomplishments, man or woman. I think it's more about your actions and the character that you portray and the energy that you exude to your partner. And with that, I guess that's it, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Appreciate y'all for listening. Make sure y'all catch us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere that y'all listen to podcasts on. Make sure y'all leave us a review, comment, subscribe, all of that. And until then, we'll catch you on the next one. Drew, peace, dog.
Stay safe, y'all. Deuces, bro.